I went to visit my son-in-law, just a simple family visit. But as I pulled up, I saw something that stopped me cold. My wife's car parked right outside his gate. She hadn't told me she was coming. What I heard next changed everything. This is the story of a secret conversation that shattered my world. Stay with me, because you won't believe what happened next. It was a calm, ordinary afternoon. The kind of day where nothing much seems to happen. Sun shining softly, a gentle breeze rustling through the trees. I had planned to visit my son-in-law's house just like any other day. Nothing out of the ordinary. I wanted to see my daughter, catch up with the family, and maybe spend a quiet few hours together. Our relationship was good, or at least I thought it was. I wasn't expecting anything unusual or surprising. I was simply looking forward to a peaceful visit. I remember driving down the familiar road leading to their house. The neighborhood was quiet, with kids playing in the distance and neighbors chatting over their fences. I felt a small smile on my face, thinking about my daughter's laugh and the warmth of family moments. I took a deep breath, happy to have this chance to connect. As I turned onto my son-in-law's street, my heart suddenly skipped a beat. There, parked right near his gate, was my wife's car. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. Maybe it was someone else's car that looked similar, but no, it was unmistakably hers. That deep shade of blue, the little scratch on the bumper she had complained about last month, even the way the sun reflected off the hood, it was definitely her car. I stopped the car immediately and sat there, staring at it in disbelief. My mind raced. Why was she here? Had she come to visit without telling me? That was unusual. We didn't usually surprise each other like that, especially with visits to family. She was always the one to let me know her plans, especially when it involved my daughter or son-in-law. A mix of emotions hit me at once. Confusion, worry, suspicion. My thoughts started spinning in every direction. Was she just running an errand nearby and decided to stop by? But then, why park so close to the gate, right in front of their house? She never did that. She preferred parking on the street or the driveway. Could she be upset about something and needed to talk to my daughter or son-in-law? Or was there something more going on? My heart began to pound harder as the questions piled up inside my head. I felt a strange chill run down my spine, an uneasy feeling I couldn't shake off. There was something about this situation that didn't sit right with me. Normally, I trusted my wife completely, but in that moment, a shadow of doubt crept in. I tried to push it away, telling myself it must be nothing, just a coincidence. But the fact she hadn't mentioned anything about coming here gnawed at me. I decided to stay in my car for a moment, gathering my thoughts. Should I just walk up and knock on the door, or call my wife to ask why she was here? Part of me wanted answers immediately, but another part hesitated. What if I misunderstood? What if there was a perfectly innocent explanation? Despite the hesitation, I couldn't help but keep looking toward the gate. My wife's car remained parked, unmoving. I saw no signs of her outside, no familiar figure walking around, no movement at all. The silence made it even more suspicious. As I reflected on the day's events, I felt a mixture of emotions. Pain, yes, but also hope. Hope that by facing the truth, we could create something stronger. Hope that by choosing to communicate openly, we could prevent secrets from growing into barriers. And hope that love, even when tested, has the power to heal and unite. I thought about my wife and son-in-law, about the courage it must have taken for them to finally share what they did. I thought about the years we had spent as a family, the memories we had created, and the future we still had the chance to shape. This was not the end of our story. It was a new chapter, a chapter where honesty would guide us, where we would confront challenges together, and where every voice, including mine, would be heard. From that day forward, I committed myself to being more present, more understanding, and more willing to bridge the gaps that silence had created. I knew that rebuilding trust wouldn't be simple, but it was possible. And it started with one step: opening my heart and speaking my truth. Because in the end, the road ahead may be uncertain, but it is also filled with the promise of healing, growth, and renewed connection. And sometimes, that's all we need to find our way back home. Thanks so much for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more real, heartfelt stories just like this. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, drop a comment below. What do you think about the story? Have you ever experienced something similar? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, take care and stay safe. And now, that path was coming into view, uncertain, fragile, but at least visible. I felt a flicker of something new, understanding. Maybe this was the beginning of healing, not the end. Maybe, just maybe, we could face these changes together as a family, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle inside me. This was the truth, raw and unfiltered. And as painful as it was also the first step towards something real. Because sometimes, the hardest truths are the ones that bring us closest together. That day, standing there in the fading light, I came to a realization that would change how I looked at everything. The truth about secrets, trust, and love. Sometimes, people keep secrets not because they want to hurt you, but because they don't know how to share difficult truths. It isn't a betrayal born from malice, but a defense mechanism, a way to protect, to avoid causing pain before they're ready to explain. It was a hard lesson to learn, especially when the silence had felt like a wedge driving us apart. I thought about all the moments before this, the unspoken words, the hushed conversations, the invisible walls that had grown between us without me even realizing. I understood now that silence can be both a shield and a prison. It keeps the truth hidden, but it also keeps hearts locked away, separated by fear and misunderstanding. Accepting this wasn't easy. The hurt was real, and the uncertainty was daunting. But it was the beginning of something important. I knew that from this moment forward, communication had to be different. It had to be open, honest, and fearless. Because if we wanted to heal, to move forward as a family, there could be no more secrets hiding in the shadows. I made a promise to myself right then, a promise to talk more with my wife, to listen with an open heart, and to share my feelings without holding back. I vowed to build bridges where walls had grown, to reach out even when it was uncomfortable, and to be patient as we all navigated this new reality together. And it wasn't just my wife. I realized that my son-in-law was also part of this family, part of this journey. I would talk to him too, not just as an in-law, but as someone I trusted, someone who cared for my daughter and wanted the best for all of us. Trust wasn't something that happened overnight. It was built step by step, word by word, moment by moment. I knew there would be challenges ahead. There would be difficult conversations, moments of doubt, and times when the old wounds felt fresh again. But I was ready to face them because I believed in the strength of our family. I believed that, even when things seem broken, there is always a way to mend what's been torn. Her words hit me like a blow and a balm all at once. I felt anger rise. How could they think hiding this from me was protecting me? But beneath that anger was a flicker of understanding. Whatever they were dealing with was hard, complicated. I realized now how much they had struggled to figure out how to share it. My son-in-law nodded in agreement. We didn't mean to keep you in the dark. It's just, we needed to plan carefully. Their honesty, fragile as it was, broke through the wall of silence that had built up between us. But even as they spoke, I knew the road ahead would be difficult. Trust had been shaken, and rebuilding it would take time. That moment, Standing there under the fading afternoon light, I understood that sometimes silence isn't peace. It's a storm waiting to break. And sometimes the hardest step toward healing is simply to speak up, even when your voice shakes. My wife let out a deep, weary sigh, a breath heavy with emotions she'd clearly been holding inside for a long time. She glanced over at my son-in-law, their eyes meeting for just a moment, sharing a silent exchange that said more than words ever could. Then, she turned her gaze back to me, her eyes soft but filled with a mixture of regret, sadness, and something I couldn't quite place. Hope, maybe? "We wanted to tell you," she began, her voice low and careful, "but we weren't sure how." There was a pause, as if the weight of those words was too heavy to carry all at once. "There's been some changes happening, things we need to work through." Her words hung in the air between us, thick and uneasy. I felt 1,000 questions flooding my mind, but for once I held my tongue, waiting for her to continue. The silence stretched on, the kind of silence that speaks louder than any shouting match, filled with all the unspoken fears, doubts, and worries that had been swirling beneath the surface. My son-in-law finally spoke, his voice calm but serious. "We thought it was best to discuss it first before involving you," he said, nodding slowly as if to emphasize the careful thought that had gone into their decision. "We didn't mean to keep you in the dark." Those words hit me like a double-edged sword. On one hand, I felt hurt that they had made decisions without me, that I had been left out of important conversations. On the other hand, I could sense the sincerity in their voices, the genuine struggle they'd faced trying to navigate a situation none of us were prepared for. I tried to steady my breathing as I absorbed their explanation. What kind of changes? What exactly were these things they needed to work through? My mind was racing, trying to fill in the blanks, to understand what this all meant for us. The truth was, hearing them admit it, out loud, made everything feel more real, more urgent. Whatever was going on wasn't just a passing problem or a simple misunderstanding. It was something deeper, something that had been quietly unfolding behind closed doors, away from my eyes and ears. I thought about all the moments I'd shared with them, all the smiles and conversations that now seemed tinted with a shadow I hadn't noticed before. The idea that they had been carrying this burden in silence was almost too much to bear. But as I looked at them both, the way my wife's shoulders sagged with exhaustion, the careful, almost apologetic look in my son-in-law's eyes, I realized that this was not about betrayal or deceit. It was about people struggling to do the right thing in a difficult situation. They weren't trying to hurt me. They were trying to protect me in their own way. The room, or rather, the yard where we stood, felt heavy with unspoken truths. I could almost hear the echoes of their whispered conversations, the late-night talks filled with worry and hope, the secret plans, the difficult decisions. They had wrestled with this for so long, trying to find a path forward that wouldn't break us. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming loneliness, surrounded by people I loved, yet feeling more isolated than ever. I was part of a family that was moving forward, without me. But why? What had I done? Was I being punished? Or was this just a painful step toward something new, something none of us fully understood yet? I wanted answers, but all I had were questions. My mind spun with possibilities, fears, and doubts. I replayed every moment we had shared as a family, searching for clues I had missed. Was there a sign, a warning, a hint that things were changing? As I stood there, hidden and unheard, I made a silent promise to myself. No matter how hard it was, no matter how painful the truth might be, I would find out what was really going on. I would face whatever came next head on. Because sometimes, the hardest part isn't just hearing the truth, It's deciding what you do with it. I realized I could no longer stay hidden, could no longer pretend I wasn't there. The questions that had been swirling inside me, the doubts, the fears, the heartbreak, were boiling over. I had to confront them. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful. Summoning every ounce of courage, I took a hesitant step forward, then another, until I stood just a few feet away from them. My hands trembled slightly as I cleared my throat to break the heavy silence. That tiny sound echoed loud in the quiet yard, instantly drawing their attention. Both of them looked up sharply, startled by my sudden appearance. The calmness I had sensed moments before vanished, replaced by shock and a flicker of guilt in their eyes. My wife's eyes widened almost as if she hadn't expected me to be there, or to hear what she had just said. I could see the tension flash across her face, the quick intake of breath, the subtle shift in her posture. I swallowed hard, feeling a lump rise in my throat. My voice trembled as I finally spoke, words spilling out before I could stop them. "What is going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside me. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming here?" I continued, my tone a mixture of confusion and hurt. I needed answers. I needed to understand what was happening right in front of me. The secrets, the whispered plans, the quiet distance I hadn't noticed before. "And what are these plans?" I asked, voice cracking slightly. "Why are you making decisions without me? Why have I been left out?" For a moment there was silence, thick, uncomfortable, charged with the weight of unspoken truths. My wife looked away briefly, biting her lip as if trying to find the right words. My son-in-law shifted uneasily, glancing between us like a mediator caught in a storm. I felt exposed, vulnerable, yet determined. It was like tearing down a wall I had built around myself, letting all my fears and doubts pour out in one raw moment. I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand everything be laid bare. But instead, I waited, watching for their response. They both exchanged a glance, a silent conversation passing between them. Then my wife finally spoke, her voice soft but steady, carrying the weight of whatever she had been holding inside for so long. "We wanted to tell you," she began cautiously, "but we weren't sure how. We thought it was better to discuss things first before involving you. We didn't want to hurt you." I heard my wife's voice, calm but decisive. "We need to think about what's best for everyone," she said. Those words echoed in my mind over and over, but what haunted me the most was the word everyone. Who was everyone? Did that everyone really include me? The thought twisted inside me, knotting my stomach and squeezing my chest. I was part of this family, or at least I had thought so. But here they were, making plans that seemed to move forward without me, like I was invisible or irrelevant. I strained to catch more, hoping for some reassurance, some sign that I was still included in their vision. But the conversation only deepened the fog of confusion. They spoke in careful phrases, like diplomats negotiating a fragile truce, words loaded with meaning but deliberately vague to someone like me, standing just outside the circle. They talked about changes, adjustments, things that needed to happen for the good of the family. But the more I listened, the less I understood. Was this about me? Was I the problem? Was I the one who needed to change? Or was I simply being pushed aside, quietly removed from the life I had helped build? The pain of that possibility was almost unbearable. I felt lost and betrayed all at once. I wanted to scream, to ask why they hadn't told me sooner, why they hadn't trusted me with the truth. Instead, I stayed silent, swallowed the hurt, and listened as their plans unfolded like a script I wasn't part of. Each phrase I caught was like a puzzle piece, but the picture it formed was unclear and unsettling. I tried to make sense of their intentions, to find a reason for their secrecy. Were they trying to protect me, or were they protecting themselves? I imagined the countless nights they must have spent discussing these plans, the serious conversations I was never invited to join. I pictured my wife sitting quietly, carefully weighing every word before sharing it with my son-in-law. And I pictured him, nodding slowly, caught between loyalty to her and his own feelings. The silence between their words screamed louder than anything they said. It was full of unspoken truths and withheld confessions. I realized then that sometimes silence can hurt more than words. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming loneliness, surrounded by people I loved, yet feeling more isolated than ever. I was part of a family that was moving forward, without me. But why? What had I done? Was I being punished? Or was this just a painful step towards something new, something none of us fully understood yet? I wanted answers, but all I had were questions. My mind spun with possibilities, fears, and doubts. I replayed every moment we had shared as a family, searching for clues I had missed. Was there a sign, a warning, a hint that things were changing? As I stood there, hidden and unheard, I made a silent promise to myself. No matter how hard it was, no matter how painful the truth might be, I would find out what was really going on. I would face whatever came next, head on. Because sometimes, the hardest part isn't just hearing the truth, it's deciding what you do with it. After what felt like an eternity of standing silently just outside the gate, listening to their hushed voices and absorbing the weight of what I was discovering, something inside me finally broke. The silence, the waiting, the confusion, it all became unbearable. My heart was pounding so fiercely that I feared it might burst through my chest. The truth was eating away at me, demanding to be faced. Had my wife been planning something behind my back? Something she hadn't told me because she thought I wouldn't understand or accept it? The thought felt like a knife twisting deeper with every passing second. And what about my son-in-law? Was he involved in something more than just this conversation? Was he part of a secret plan or a decision that excluded me? That question alone unsettled me more than I could explain. I struggled to hold back the flood of emotions that threatened to spill over: anger, sadness, confusion, hurt. How could they have kept this from me? Why did they feel the need to speak in whispers, to hide these plans behind closed doors? It wasn't just about secrecy, it was about trust, about the foundation of everything we had shared. The phrase, "it's better this way," felt like a betrayal, because it implied that what we had wasn't enough, that the family we had built wasn't worthy of being preserved openly and honestly. I pictured the countless moments I had spent with my wife and son-in-law, celebrations, dinners, quiet evenings. Were all those moments overshadowed now by this hidden truth? Did they carry these plans in their hearts while pretending everything was fine? The pain was sharper than I anticipated. I had never imagined feeling so alone, so left out, in the very family I had helped create. At that moment, I realized how fragile relationships can be when honesty is replaced by silence and whispers. The foundation I thought was solid suddenly felt like it was crumbling beneath my feet. I wanted to reach out, to call my wife's name, to demand answers, but my voice felt stuck somewhere deep inside me. I was overwhelmed by the weight of what I had just heard, by the magnitude of the unknown. I thought about all the whys racing through my mind. Why keep me in the dark? Why make decisions without me? Why pretend everything was normal when there was clearly something breaking apart behind the scenes? The hardest part was knowing that the truth, whatever it was real and unavoidable. I couldn't ignore it or pretend it didn't exist. That phrase, "it's better this way," marked a turning point, a moment when everything changed. It meant that whatever lay ahead, the family I once knew would never be the same. As the words echoed again in my mind, I felt something shift deep inside me. The pain was there, but so was a strange clarity. I had to face this reality. no matter how heartbreaking. Because sometimes the hardest truths are the ones we need to hear, even when they hurt the most. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure they could hear it, but I stayed rooted where I was, hidden in the shadows just beyond the gate. The urge to confront them, to burst inside and demand answers, was overwhelming. I wanted to call out, to force the truth into the open where it could no longer be hidden. But something held me back. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the desperate hope that I was misunderstanding everything. So I stayed quiet, listening. The words they spoke next cut through the silence like cold steel. They were talking about plans for the future. But as the words reached my ears, a chilling realization struck me. These plans excluded me, and then it hit me. Perhaps this was more than just a conversation between two people. Maybe it was a turning point, a decision that would change the dynamics of our family forever. The kind of decision that only a few people understand fully, while others are left in the dark. I felt a pang of loneliness and sadness wash over me. Had my wife and son-in-law been discussing something that affected all of us? And why was I left out of this? Why was I the last to know? The thought stung. For years, I had trusted them both, believing we were a team, that we shared everything important. But now, hearing that calm acceptance, it felt like I was standing outside, watching a door close silently behind me. I tried to make sense of it all, but the calmness in their voices made it impossible to guess the full story. There was no shouting, no pleading, no heated arguments, only a quiet surrender. That surrender hinted at a resolution, but it also hinted at loss. Whatever they had decided to accept came at a price. My mind raced with possibilities. Were they planning something new? Was there a secret I hadn't uncovered yet? Or was this calm a mask for pain they didn't want to show me? One thing was clear. The calmness was not peace for me. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where the comfort of certainty gave way to doubt and questions. I realized then that whatever lay ahead, I needed to prepare myself. The calm in their voices was a signal that things were about to change, in ways I might not be ready for. Yet despite the turmoil inside me, a small part of me admired my wife's strength. To face difficult truths calmly, to accept hard decisions without bitterness, it was a rare courage. Still, that courage came with a cost, and I was left standing there, wondering what it meant for us all. Suddenly, through the soft murmurs and carefully chosen words, a phrase struck me wit. The force of a punch straight to the chest. It's better this way. Those simple words echoed over and over in my mind like a haunting refrain. The moment I heard them, everything shifted. A cold wave of pain washed over me, sharper and more profound than I had ever expected. Those words weren't just casual, they were heavy with meaning, full of finality. It's better this way. But better for whom? I couldn't help but feel a crushing sense of betrayal. Betrayal not just because they had kept this from me, but because the phrase implied that the life we had shared, the family we had built, was somehow no longer good enough. My mind raced through every possibility. What decision could be so important, so serious, that it warranted such secrecy and quiet acceptance? What could possibly be better that I wasn't a part of? I felt my chest tighten, the breath catching in my throat. The more I tried to understand, the more distant the answers became. It was as if the walls around me were closing in, trapping me in a nightmare where the people I loved were making choices without me, choices that would affect all of us. The harsh truth began to sink in slowly but surely. They were talking about something that would change our family forever, something I wasn't supposed to hear, much less understand yet. The realization stabbed at my heart. The silence between their words was just as telling as their voices. Pauses filled with unspoken emotions, doubts, and fears. I wanted to reach out, to interrupt, to demand answers. but I stayed quiet, caught between anger and confusion. Part of me screamed to confront them, to get the truth no matter what it was. But another part feared what that truth might be. Could this tension be the sign of something breaking apart? Could it mean that the life I thought I had was shifting, slipping beyond my control? As I listened, the questions piled higher. I knew I couldn't pretend I hadn't heard anything. This moment marked a turning point, a moment where silence no longer felt like an option. Whatever they were planning, whatever decisions were being made behind closed doors, it was serious. It was real. And it was something I needed to face head-on, no matter how difficult. In that growing tension, I realized one thing clearly. The comfort of the past was fading, replaced by an uncertain and fragile future. As I stood there, barely daring to breathe, something unexpected washed over the tense atmosphere. A quiet calmness. It wasn't the restless energy of an argument or the sharp edge of anger. No, this calm felt different, almost unsettling in its steadiness. Despite the heaviness in the air, my wife's voice was steady and firm, like a captain guiding a ship through a storm. She spoke with clarity and control, her tone neither raised nor rushed. It was as if she had come to terms with whatever difficult situation they were discussing, as if she had already wrestled with the turmoil inside her and finally reached a place of acceptance. This calmness puzzled me. After all the tension, the whispers, the secretive glances, why was there such a sense of peace? It was a strange contrast to the uncertainty I had felt moments ago. I listened closely, trying to understand the meaning behind her words and the tone she chose. Her voice carried a quiet confidence, the kind that comes only after making a tough decision, one that might hurt, but one that feels necessary. There was no bitterness, no regret, only a firm resolve. It struck me as a moment where someone stops fighting what they cannot change and simply embraces it, ready to face the consequences. My son-in-law's voice matched hers in calmness. Although I had sensed hesitation before, now his tone was softer, almost resigned. There was an unspoken agreement between them, a silent understanding that whatever they had decided was final. I couldn't help but wonder what they had agreed upon. What serious change had they accepted so quietly, without shouting or argument? Was this about family, about us? Or was it something else entirely, something so personal that it was too painful to say out loud? This calm didn't comfort me. Instead, it unsettled me deeply. It felt like the calm before a storm, the quiet that precedes a dramatic shift in everything I thought I knew. I replayed the moment over in my mind, the steady voice, the careful words, the way they seemed to carry the weight of finality. It was as if they had already moved past the hardest part of the conversation, the anger, the confusion, the fear, and were now preparing to move forward, whatever that meant. At one point, I thought I heard my wife say, "It's for the best," but I wasn't completely sure. That phrase echoed inside my head over and over, making my stomach tighten. What could be for the best that involved them whispering like conspirators? I felt torn. Part of me wanted to rush in, demand answers, demand honesty. But the other part feared that confronting them would only push them further away. If they were hiding something, what if that something was a secret that would break the family apart? For a long moment, I simply stood there, invisible and unheard, caught in a silent storm of emotions. The whispered conversation continued, their words delicate but loaded with meaning I could barely grasp. Every phrase was like a piece of a puzzle, but the picture was still incomplete. I knew one thing for certain. Whatever they were planning or deciding about, it involved change. And change like this never came easy. With my heart racing and my mind swirling with unanswered questions, I realized that this moment, this quiet, secret conversation, was going to change everything. As I stood there, hidden just beyond the gate, The voices I had been straining to hear grew more distinct, but with each passing moment, something deeper and heavier filled the air, a strange tension, almost like electricity crackling between them. Their tones weren't casual or light-hearted anymore. They were serious, charged with an urgency that sent a shiver down my spine. My wife's voice was calm, but intense. She was explaining something carefully, choosing her words with a deliberate care, as if trying to deliver difficult news without causing unnecessary pain. There was a softness to her voice, but beneath it, I sensed a firmness, like she had already made up her mind and was prepared to face whatever consequences came next. On the other side of the conversation, my son-in-law was silent for, the most part, listening closely. His responses were short, thoughtful, as if he was absorbing every word, weighing it carefully before speaking. I could hear the hesitation in his voice, a mix of concern, uncertainty, and perhaps even regret. It was clear he didn't fully agree with everything being said, or maybe he was just struggling to accept the reality of the situation. I felt like an invisible witness to something I was never meant to hear, a private conversation that was both intimate and difficult. I stood frozen, heart pounding, as the gravity of what they were discussing slowly sank in. The tension was thick enough to feel like a tightrope stretched between them, threatening to snap at any moment. My mind swirled with questions, each one pounding louder than the last. What kind of plans were they making? Were these plans about the family? About us? About me? Why hadn't they told me? Why was I the last to know? Or worse, completely unaware? Had they been hiding this from me all along? Was there something deeper? Something darker they were trying to keep secret? The more I listened, the more confusion and hurt mingled inside me. I thought about all the years we had shared, all the promises made, the trust built. And now, standing there in the shadows, I felt that trust starting to crack, just like the tension in their voices. I imagined my wife, the woman I had known for so long, carefully choosing her words, her eyes perhaps filled with worry or sadness. Was she protecting someone? Was she trying to shield me from something painful? Or was she part of a plan that I wasn't included in? And my son-in-law, he was always respectful, polite, someone I trusted. But now, hearing his voice hesitate and falter, I wondered if he was caught in a conflict of loyalty. Was he torn between his wife and me? Between what he wanted and what was expected? I thought about calling my wife, but I hesitated. If something was wrong, maybe I should let her explain in her own time. I didn't want to push her away or create drama, but the longer I stayed silent, the harder it became to control the flood of emotions inside me. Curiosity was no longer just a feeling. It had turned into an urgent need to know the truth. I had to find out why she was here and what she was talking about with my son-in-law. With a deep breath, I leaned in a little closer, hoping to catch a word or two without being noticed. The tension wrapped around me like a thick fog, but I couldn't turn back now. I was caught between the fear of what I might discover and the hope that it was nothing to worry about. As I listened, I realized that sometimes the things we least expect reveal the most about the people we love. As I inched closer to the gate, my senses sharpened. Every sound around me seemed amplified. The rustling of leaves, distant bird song, the faint creak of a swinging branch. But amid all these natural noises, I suddenly picked up something far more compelling. Voices. At first, they were faint and indistinct, like murmurs carried on the wind. I thought it might be neighbors chatting, or someone inside the house speaking on the phone. But as I focused more, the voices grew clearer, and I realized they were soft, low, and urgent. There was a weight to their tone, like they were discussing something important but wanted to keep it hidden from anyone passing by. I froze, my heart suddenly pounding harder in my chest. There was no mistaking it. The voices belonged to my wife and my son-in-law. Hearing their voices together, whispering so closely, sent a jolt of confusion and alarm through me. Why would they be talking in hushed tones? What secret were they sharing? Why did they feel the need to keep it so quiet? I strained my ears, trying to catch more of what they were saying, but the words were carefully muffled, slipping through like water through my fingers. Still, certain words caught my attention and refused to let go. The word plans came up several times, spoken with an intensity that made me lean in closer. Decisions followed soon after, uttered in a tone that sounded both serious and resigned. Then there was moving forward, a phrase that sent a chill down my spine. What kind of plans? What decisions? And what exactly did moving forward mean in this context? I couldn't piece it all together, but the way they said it felt like something was changing, something important that I wasn't yet privy to. I could feel the pounding of my heart in my ears now, a mix of fear and curiosity coursing through my veins. Part of me wanted to step back and leave it alone. Maybe it wasn't my business. Maybe whatever they were discussing wasn't meant for me. But another part of me, a stronger part, was drawn in by the mystery, compelled to uncover the truth. The more I listened, the more I noticed the strange contrast in their voices. My wife's tone was calm yet firm, like someone who had already made up her mind about something difficult. My son-in-law, on the other hand, sounded more hesitant, occasionally pausing as if unsure or conflicted. It was clear they were not simply chatting about everyday matters. This was something heavier, something weighing on both of them. I pictured their faces in my mind. My wife with that quiet strength she always showed when faced with challenges, and my son-in-law with the mixture of respect and nervousness he often had around her. They were partners in this conversation, but it didn't feel like they were united just for a happy occasion. It felt more like a private negotiation, a conversation between two people grappling with a difficult reality. I glanced down at my phone, considering calling her, but I stopped. I thought maybe it was better to just go inside quietly, talk to my daughter or son-in-law first, and find out what was going on before jumping to conclusions. But as I took the first step out of my car, a wave of anxiety hit me. What if I was walking into a secret I wasn't meant to know? What if this visit would change everything? With a deep breath, I stepped out, trying to steady my nerves. I moved closer to the gate, heart thumping loudly in my chest, every sound suddenly amplified. The crunch of gravel under my shoes, the distant barking of a dog, the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. I couldn't shake the feeling that this ordinary visit was about to turn into something I never expected, something that would shake my world in ways I hadn't imagined. And all because I saw my wife's car parked where it shouldn't have been. As I stood there, heart still racing from the shock of seeing my wife's car parked near my son-in-law's gate, my mind began to whirl uncontrollably. Was it just a coincidence? Could it really be that simple? Maybe she had a quick errand nearby and had stopped for a moment. But then again, why didn't she tell me? Even the smallest things like errands or plans usually came up in our conversations. The fact that I had no idea she was here gnawed at me. My thoughts tangled like a storm, spinning faster and faster. What if she was here for a reason I didn't know? What if something was going on that I wasn't aware of? I was confused, but more than that, I was deeply curious. The urge to find out the truth, to understand why my wife was here, pushed me forward. I glanced around quickly, making sure no one was watching me. The street was quiet. Only the distant hum of cars and faint chatter from neighbors in their yards. No one seemed to notice me standing near the gate, eyes fixed on that house. Slowly, cautiously, I began to move closer to the gate. I didn't want to seem like I was spying or snooping, but my instincts were telling me to know more. The closer I got, the more my curiosity burned inside me like a flame I couldn't put out. My hands trembled slightly as I approached the gate. I tried to be as quiet as possible, careful not to make any noise that would alert whoever was inside. I didn't want to create an awkward or confrontational situation, especially if it was all innocent. But part of me feared that once I heard what was being said, nothing would ever be the same. I scanned the windows near the gate, trying to catch a glimpse of my wife. Was she inside? Was she waiting for someone? Or maybe she was talking to my son-in-law? The questions piled up like a heavy weight on my chest. My mind flashed back to all the times I had trusted her completely, the countless moments we shared without any secrets. But now, standing there, a sudden wave of doubt swept over me. What if she was hiding something? What if I had missed the signs? The thought hurt more than I expected. I paused for a moment behind a tree, out of sight, but close enough to listen. The tension was unbearable. My ears strained to pick up any sounds from inside the house. I wanted answers, but I wasn't sure I was ready for what I might hear. As I waited, my imagination ran wild. Maybe they were discussing something serious, a family issue, a surprise party, or some important news. Or maybe it was something darker. The thought made my stomach twist. I reminded myself to stay calm, to not jump to conclusions too fast. But the quiet around me felt heavy, as if the house was holding its breath, hiding secrets behind every wall and door. The minutes felt like hours. Every little noise, footsteps, doors closing softly, muffled voices, made me tense up, waiting to catch a clue.